Imagine you just dropped $80,000, maybe even $100,000 on a brand new Chevy Silverado 2500 HD or GM Sierra HD. You're standing at the dealership, keys in hand, and the salesperson is going through all the features. And of course, they say with a smile, you've got the Allison 10-speed transmission, best in the business. You nod, you know the Allison name, it's legendary. For decades, Allison transmissions have been the gold standard for heavy-duty trucks. Reliable, nearly indestructible, trusted by everyone from contractors to the military. That's why you bought the truck. That's why you're comfortable towing your 30-foot camper or hauling equipment for your business. Except, here's the thing, you don't have an Allison transmission. Not really. What you have is a GM transmission with an Allison badge on it. GM paid to use the name, and that transmission, it's failing spectacularly. Welcome to one of the automotive industry's most fetch marketing schemes, a story about brand licensing, quality control disasters, and thousands of truck owners stuck at dealerships waiting for parts that don't exist yet. This is the story of how General Motors borrowed one of the most respected names in the transmission business, slapped it on their own product, and watched as that product turned into a warranty nightmare that's now costing them the very brand they paid to use. Let's start at the beginning. Section 1, the legend of Allison transmission. To understand why this matters, we need to understand what the Allison name means in the trucking world. James A. Allison founded the Speedway Team Company in Indianapolis in 1915. Yes, the same guy who helped create the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When World War I started, Allison pivoted to making military equipment. After the war, the company focused on aviation and transmission technology. By 1929, General Motors bought the company. For the next 78 years, Allison Transmission was part of GM, and they built some truly incredible stuff. During World War II, they produced the V-1710 aircraft engine, 70,000 of them. They developed transmissions for tanks, buses, heavy equipment, and eventually commercial trucks. In 1999, Allison introduced the 1000 series transmission, a 5-speed, fully automatic transmission designed for light-duty commercial vehicles. This transmission became legendary when GM paired it with their new 6.6-liter Duramax diesel engine in 2001. The combination was truly fetch. Contractors, farmers, RV owners, anyone towing heavy loads, they all wanted the Duramax Allison combo. Why? Because it was bulletproof. You could put 300,000, 400,000, even 500,000 miles on these transmissions with the proper maintenance. They just worked. The Allison name became synonymous with reliability in the heavy-duty truck market. In 2006, Allison added a 6th gear, essentially updating the same proven platform. The 6-speed Allison 1000 continued that reputation for dependability through 2019. But here's where things get complicated. In 2007, GM, facing a financial crisis that would lead to their 2009 bankruptcy, sold Allison Transmission to private equity firms Carlyle Group and Onex Corporation for $5.6 billion. The sale included 7 manufacturing plants in Indianapolis and Allison's worldwide distribution network. But GM kept one thing, the Baltimore plant that made transmissions specifically for GM trucks. So even after the sale, GM continued manufacturing what were called Allison 1000 transmissions for their own vehicles. These transmissions were built in a GM plant by GM workers, but they were still designed to Allison specifications and carried the Allison brand. This was all kosher. Allison validated the design and GM paid licensing fees. The transmissions maintained their reputation. Then came 2020. Section 2, enter the 10L1000, the Allison that wasn't. For the 2020 model year, GM introduced an all-new heavy truck lineup. The big news? A 10-speed automatic transmission. More gears means better fuel economy, better towing performance, closer gear ratios that kept the engine in its power band. This is what modern transmissions do. And GM called it the Allison 10L1000. Here's what GM's press releases said, and I quote, "The Allison branded automatic transmission manufactured by General Motors combines enhanced performance and fuel economy, greater operational flexibility, and improved driver comfort and control." Read that carefully. Allison branded, manufactured by General Motors. Randy Kirk, Senior Vice President at Allison Transmission, issued a statement. General Motors continues to expand the range of Allison products available for their customers with the 2020 Silverado HD. Allison Transmission and GM have a long history of collaboration and innovation. Sounds great, right? Except here's what they didn't tell you in big bold letters. General Motors designed this transmission. General Motors manufactured this transmission at their plant in Toledo, Ohio. Allison's role was limited to some design input, validation testing, and improving the use of their name. That's it. GM paid Allison a licensing fee to use the Allison brand, but this transmission has nothing to do with the Allison 1000 that came before it. It's a different design, a different manufacturer, different everything. Oh, and one more thing, the 10L1000 has absolutely nothing to do with the 10-speed transmission that GM and Ford co-developed for their half-ton trucks, the 10L80/10R80. Despite both being 10 speeds, they're completely different transmissions. The 10L1000 is GM's own design. Now you might be thinking, okay, so GM made their own transmission and licensed the Allison name. If it's good, who cares? Totally fair point. Except Section 3, the quality control nightmare. It wasn't good. It was really not good. Starting in 2020, GM began putting these 10L1000 transmissions in every Silverado and Sierra 2500 and 3500 HD with the Duramax diesel. By 2024, they started using them with the 6.6-liter gas engine too. We're talking hundreds of thousands of trucks, and they started failing constantly. The primary failure point, the valve body. If you're not familiar with transmissions, the valve body is basically the brain of an automatic transmission. Controls hydraulic pressure and directs fluid to different clutch packs to make the shifts happen. When the valve body fails, the transmission goes into limp mode, stuck in one gear, usually fifth. You're limping home at 30 miles per hour. Common symptoms reported by owners: harsh shifting, especially in the 6.7 and 7.8 range, transmission binding up during shifts, check engine light with codes P0700, generic transmission fault, and P0747, pressure control solenoid stuck. There's a complete loss of shift control, reduced engine power warnings, and in some cases, complete transmission failure requiring replacement. Here's what's truly wild about this. These failures are happening at shockingly low mileages. We're talking 19,000 miles, 25,000 miles, 35,000 miles, 40,000 miles. Some trucks haven't even made it past their first oil change before the transmission goes. One owner on the Duramax forum reported 3 valve body failures on their 2023 Sierra 3500 HD. At 57,000 kilometers, 112,000 kilometers, and 158,000 kilometers. 3 times, and each time the dealer just replaced the valve body with another defective one. Another owner said, "My 2024 3500 dually has sat at a dealer for 3 months now while I pay my payment waiting for parts. No loaner, no anything, just we don't know when the parts will be in." A 2024 Silverado 3500 with a $10,000 lift and custom wheels sitting in a dealer lot because the transmission died at 19,000 miles. The owner had to rent a car to get home from vacation on his own dime and waited 3 weeks for the repair. And here's the kicker: dealers can't get parts. The valve bodies are on national backorder. Some owners have been waiting 2, 3, even 4 months for a replacement valve body. Their $100,000 trucks are sitting in dealer parking lots collecting dust and bird droppings while they make monthly payments on the vehicles that they can't drive. Section 4. What's actually wrong with these transmissions? The specific problem is a component called the feed limit valve inside the valve body. There are 2 of them, low and high. In a properly functioning valve body, these valves should maintain consistent vacuum readings, but in the GM 10L1000, they don't. Transmission shops doing vacuum tests found the feed limit valves were way out of spec. 5 inches of mercury when they should be higher, 16 when they should be lower. These valves wear prematurely, leading to a loss of proper hydraulic pressure throughout the transmission. Without the proper line pressure, you get clutch slippage, burnt clutches, poor shift quality, and internal wear and damage. And it gets worse. The original valve body manufacturer went bankrupt. GM had to find a new supplier. The first generation valve bodies, 2020 to 2022, were garbage. The second generation, 2023 and early 2024, were also garbage. GM supposedly fixed the issue for late 2024 and 2025 models with a Gen 3 valve body with different part numbers, 24048701 to be exact. Except here's the problem. Even the 2025 models are reportedly failing. One transmission shop tech on the forum said, "Yep, this might just end up being a design flaw of this transmission, and we won't see it truly fixed until GM redesigns it or goes with another unit for HD trucks." To make matters worse, when a valve body fails and needs replacement, GM doesn't have enough of the updated parts. So, dealers are installing older defective valve bodies just to get trucks moving again, which means those trucks will fail again in another 20 or 30,000 miles. Section 5, the aftermarket to the rescue, sort of. When the manufacturer can't fix their own transmission, what do? You turn to the aftermarket. Companies like Suncoast and Next Gen Drivetrain saw the problem and developed upgraded valve body kits. These kits cost anywhere from $800 for a DIY repair to $3,500 for a complete replacement valve body with upgraded components. These aftermarket valve bodies address the fundamental design flaws in the GM unit. Better materials, higher tolerances, higher line pressure capability. Many owners who've installed them report the problem is solved. But here's the catch. Installing an aftermarket valve body almost certainly voids your GM warranty. So if you have a truck with 30,000 miles that's still under warranty, you have two choices. 1, wait months for a GM valve body that will probably fail again. Or 2, pay $3,500 out of pocket for an aftermarket fix that actually works, but lose your warranty coverage on a $100,000 truck. Neither option is acceptable for a vehicle that's supposed to be reliable and shouldn't have these problems in the first place. Some owners are doing it anyway. As one forum member put it, "I'm not spending $3,500 to fix GM's screw-up. If we let GM off the hook, they're going to continue this bad behavior." Section 6, the recall that wasn't quite enough. In October 2024, GM issued a safety recall for certain 2024 Silverado HD trucks. The problem? A transmission direct overdrive carrier built with an incorrect caged piston bearing. The hazards listed in the recall: transmission failure, gear slippage, excessive vibration and noise, increased friction and heat, and risk of complete lockup. The fix? Replace the entire transmission, not just the valve body, the entire transmission, plus the transfer case components, exhaust seals, mounts, and various other parts. Estimated repair time, 7.4 hours. But here's what's interesting. This recall only covered specific trucks with specific RPO codes. It didn't cover all the trucks experiencing valve body failures, and it didn't address the underlying valve body design flaw. Comments on GM Authority's article about the recall tell the story. I suspect that Allison Transmission is sorry they ever participated in this Allison branded scheme. The transmissions were not designed by Allison, nor are they manufactured by Allison. There have been several issues with these transmissions. And for what this program will likely cost, GM could have put real Allisons in everything the first time. The bean counters and marketers need to step aside and let folks who know what they're doing do their jobs. And the only reason I went with the Chevy was for the Allison transmission. Now, Ram trucks might look pretty good. And the last comment is the key. People bought these trucks because they thought they were getting a genuine Allison transmission. Section 7, the brand damage and the divorce. And that's where Allison Transmission said, enough. According to multiple sources on truck forums, and this hasn't been widely reported in the mainstream media yet, GM's license to use the Allison trademark expires in June 2025. After that date, GM can no longer call these transmissions Allison. Furthermore, any unsold 2020 to 2025 inventory still sitting on dealer lots must have the Allison badging physically removed by the end of June. Think about what this means. Allison Transmission, a company that built its reputation on reliability and quality for over 100 years, is walking away from a licensing deal with General Motors because GM's quality control issues are damaging the Allison brand. One forum commenter nailed it. Or maybe Allison doesn't want their name associated with the negative reputation of the GM transmissions. Bingo. This is a company protecting its brand. When your name becomes synonymous with quality, you can't afford to have it attached to a product that's failing at 20,000 miles. The lawsuits alone would be a nightmare, not to mention the long-term brand damage. Imagine your Allison transmission. You're still making actual Allison transmissions for buses, fire trucks, refuse trucks, military trucks all over the world. Those transmissions work. They're reliable. Now imagine customers starting to associate your name with the GM 10L1000 disaster. That's not acceptable. So the licensing agreement is ending. No more Allison 10L1000. Starting with the 2026 models, these will just be GM 10-speed transmissions. No Allison badge, no Allison branding. Section 8, the consumer perspective. I feel lied to. Let's talk about what this means for the people who actually bought these trucks. Many buyers specifically chose GM HD trucks over Ford or Ram because of the Allison name. They knew that name, they trusted it. Some had owned previous GM trucks with real Allison 1000 transmission from 2001 to 2019, and they had great experiences. So when they went back to buy a 2020 to 2025 truck and saw Allison 10-speed on the spec sheet, they assumed they were getting the same quality. I mean, why wouldn't they? Except nowhere in GM's marketing materials did they make it clear that this was a GM-designed, GM-manufactured transmission that simply licensed the Allison name. The average buyer had no idea. One commenter summed it up perfectly. Poor form for Allison as it diminishes their brand when crap like this happens. Went to a well-respected diesel shop to ask about these issues. They tried to convince me to keep my 06. Another, I traded my 22 for a 24, mainly because of the so-called Allison 10-speed. This pisses me off. I'm done buying new junk. These aren't just angry internet comments. These are real people who spent real money, often six figures when you include taxes, registration, and accessories, on trucks they expected to be reliable workhorses. And now, those trucks are sitting broken in dealerships with no ETA on parts. Some can't tow their RVs on planned vacations, reservations already paid for. Some are small business owners losing money every day as their truck is down because they can't service customers. Some are making monthly payments on trucks they literally cannot drive. The frustration is palpable, and a lot of it centers on feeling deceived about what they were actually buying. Section 9, Ford's 10-speed, the comparison. Here's something interesting. Ford has a 10-speed heavy-duty transmission too, the 10R140, introduced in 2020 for the Super Duty trucks. And while it's had some issues, no transmission is perfect by the way, it hasn't experienced the catastrophic valve body failure epidemic that GM's transmission has. Some have speculated this is because Ford's transmission is slightly overbuilt. It's rated for 1,050 pound-feet of torque versus the GM's 1,000 pound-feet rating. Ford also manufactures theirs at their Sharonville, Ohio plant with different specifications. The irony? There was initially confusion in the market because people thought the Ford and GM 10-speeds were related, since Ford and GM did co-develop the 10-speed for half-ton trucks, but they're completely different transmissions for the heavy-duty applications. Ford didn't license any branding for their transmission, it's just the Ford 10R140, no fancy name, no borrowed reputation, and comparatively fewer problems. Section 10, what was GM thinking? This whole situation raises some obvious questions. Why didn't GM just make their transmission good enough to stand on its own merits? If you're going to design and build your own 10-speed heavy-duty transmission, why not just call it the GM 10L1000 and let it prove itself? If it's good, people will buy it. If it works, word of mouth will spread. Instead, GM paid licensing fees to Allison, probably millions of dollars over 5 years, to borrow brand equity that they then squandered with poor quality control. Why didn't GM catch these problems before releasing hundreds of thousands of trucks? Modern automakers do extensive testing. They have engineers, they have quality control processes. How does a catastrophic valve body design flaw make it through all of that and then into production vehicles? And once the problems became obvious in 2020 and 2021 trucks, why didn't GM fix it properly before 2023, 2024, and the 2025 models? Did GM think the Allison name would protect them from criticism? There's a cynical reading of this situation. GM knew that they had new unproven transmission design, so they licensed the Allison name to give buyers confidence and drive sales. Don't worry, it's an Allison. Except it wasn't really an Allison, and when it started failing, the Allison name became an anchor instead of a life raft. Section 11, the true Allison years, what owners miss. To understand what's been lost, let's talk about the real Allison 1000, 2000 transmissions that GM trucks had from 2001 to 2019. These were actual Allison-designed, Allison-validated transmissions. Early versions were built by Allison. Later versions were built in GM's Baltimore plant, but still to Allison's specifications and with Allison's oversight. The 5-speed Allison 1000 from 2001 to 2005 and a 6-speed Allison 1000 from 2006 to 2019 became legendary for their durability. Stories of these transmissions going 300, 400, and even 500,000 miles with just fluid and filter changes are completely common. One owner commented, I've ran the 6 speeds in 3 different HDs for over 300,000 without any issues. Another, I bought a 2017 Duramax L5P Plus True 6-speed Allison. Goal is to hit 1 million miles. That's the reputation GM was borrowing. That's what people expected when they saw Allison on their 2020 to 2025 trucks. What they got instead was a transmission that might not make it to 50,000 miles without major repairs. Section 12, the path forward. What happens now? So where does this leave everyone? For GM, they've got a massive warranty exposure problem. Thousands of transmissions will need valve bodies replaced, maybe multiple times per truck. The cost is going to be staggering, and now they've lost the Allison branding that was helping sell these trucks. Starting with the 2026 models, these will just be GM 10-speed transmissions. No borrowed credibility, they'll have to stand on their own merits, which means GM has to fix the underlying problems or risk losing heavy-duty truck customers to Ford and Ram. For Allison Transmission, they're protecting their brand by ending the licensing agreement. Smart move. They can't afford to have their name associated with these failures. Their reputation in commercial and military applications is far too valuable. But for current owners of 2020 to 2025 trucks, you're stuck. You either wait for GM to hopefully provide a proper fix under warranty, pay for an aftermarket solution out of pocket, trade the truck in and eat the depreciation, which will be significant once word of these problems spreads more widely, or keep driving and hope your particular truck doesn't fail. For prospective buyers, if you're shopping for a used 2020 to 2025 GM HD truck, you need to know about this issue. That Allison 10-speed might be a ticking time bomb. Get a pre-purchase inspection by a transmission specialist. Budget for a potential $3,500 aftermarket valve body replacement. And if you're buying new, the 2025 models supposedly have the improved valve body, but there are still reports of failures. Maybe wait and see how the 2026 models without Allison branding perform. Or consider Ford or Ram. Section 13, the bigger lesson, branding versus reality. This story is about more than just a transmission. It's about the gap between marketing and reality. For over a century, the Allison name meant something. It meant quality, it meant reliability, it meant a transmission that would outlast the rest of the truck. GM paid to borrow that reputation. They put the Allison badge on a transmission that Allison didn't really make. And when that transmission failed repeatedly, catastrophically, expensively, it damaged both brands. Consumers felt deceived. I bought this truck because it had an Allison transmission. Except it didn't. Not really. Allison's brand got dragged through the mud for a product they didn't manufacture and couldn't control the quality of. GM now has to deal with the warranty costs, the PR nightmare, and the loss of the very branding they paid for. Everyone loses. The lesson? You can't fake quality. You can't borrow a reputation and then squander it with poor execution. Eventually, reality catches up with the marketing. Section 14, the uncomfortable questions about industry practices. The situation also raises broader questions about common practices in the auto industry. How much brand licensing happens that consumers don't know about? When you see a brand name on a component, do you really know who it's made by? Allison branded could mean Allison designed it and built it, or it could mean someone else built it and paid for the name. How many other examples of this exist across the industry that we just don't know about? Should there be more disclosure requirements? Maybe GM should have been required to clearly state, this transmission is designed and manufactured by General Motors under license from Allison Transmission. Not buried in fine print, but prominently in the marketing materials. Would that have changed buying decisions? Maybe. What about warranty coverage when third-party fixes are better than a manufacturer fix? If an aftermarket valve body actually solves a problem, but installing it voids your warranty, that puts owners in an impossible situation. Should there be some kind of lemon law provision for transmissions that repeatedly fail? Is there enough accountability for quality control failures? GM will pay for warranty repairs, but what about the owners who lost business income? Who paid for rental cars that should have been covered? Who spent months unable to use trucks they're still paying for? A recall and free repairs doesn't make customers whole when the problem is this widespread and this prolonged. The badge comes off. So here we are. After 5 years of lending its name to a transmission that it didn't really make, Allison Transmission is walking away. In June 2025, the licensing agreement ends. The Allison 10L1000 becomes the GM 10L1000. The badges come off unsold inventory. For General Motors, this is hugely embarrassing. They paid millions for the right to use one of the most respected names in the transmission business. Then produced a product so problematic that Allison doesn't want to be associated with it anymore. The next time you're truck shopping and you see familiar brand name on a component, maybe ask a few more questions. Who actually made this? Who designed it? Is this the same quality I associate with that brand, or am I just paying for a badge? Because sometimes a badge is all you're getting. And when you're towing 20,000 pounds up a mountain pass and your transmission goes into limp mode at 25,000 miles, that badge isn't going to get you home. That Allison name on those 2020 to 2025 GM trucks was supposed to mean reliability, quality, peace of mind. Instead, it became a symbol of misplaced trust. As one dejected owner put it, the last good trans I had from GM was the 4L80. Solid shifts, no hunting for correct gears. I have great confidence the few trans mechanics that are out there will be even more overwhelmed with this new POS trans. It is really a sad day. I am blown away Allison would let GM soil their solid name with this product. Turns out, Allison agrees. That's why the name is coming off.